bombarded the newly formed atom bombs in the cities of Nagasaki and another city of Hiroshima in Japan, killing lakhs of people instantly, causing very deadly situation and causing the genetic diseases and problems due to radiation and all that for many decades, even continuing today. The victims are still alive and they report the kind of problems caused by. And what about the chemical and biological weapons? The dramatic aspect is the West is doing research in that. The atom bomb was prepared in the United States under a project known as Manhattan Project, and it was dropped in an Asian country. The biological and chemical weapons about which there is a lot of hue and cry around the world are researched and produced and sold, and the profit is pocketed by the American and the European countries. And they are being used in the poor Asian countries. First of all, they are sold for a bigger price, and they are used for the destruction of our Asia-African poor people. This is another aspect. This is where the guidance of the Supreme Being is lacking. So this is the aspect which we cannot ignore. What about the Western science? Definitely Western science, we are pursuing the Western science today. Western science in the sense that this form of science took shape in Europe and then in America, and combinedly we call it the Western science. But what is the nature of scientific development? If the science originated from the West, and if at all West plus a little bit of science from Greek, Ptolemy, Copernicus, Aristotle, then lot of gap. They lived in BC 300 or 400, something like that. Then BC complete karne ke liye you have to minus subtract 300, 400 years. Then AD starts, and the Western science originated only in 1600 from the Copernicus, from the Galileo, Newton, and all. And what about these 2000 years? Nothing was there. This is the greatest manipulation of the Western science historians. And this is not only a part of Western historical books. It is part of the even curricula. Because before Newton, who spoke something about science, relevant things, Aristotle. They are going 2000 years back. Aristotle. Then Archimedes. Nothing, everywhere vacuum, white. This is the greatest manipulation, and this is being taught throughout the world. The fact is, science is an accumulative enterprise. Newton himself had told that if I can see farther, it is because I stand on the shoulders of giants. It is true in science. In the very beginning, even at the time of Newton himself believed that the whole universe is centered on the sun, and all the stars are related, associated with the sun, because the knowledge was limited. This is true. This is human limitation. The science in the very beginning, there were very serious attempts from India, from China, from Babylonia, from Egypt, from Greek also, before from the Arabs. Indian contribution through Aryabhatta, Madhavacharya, a lot of people, mathematicians, physicians, but at the standard of the time that we have to accept. Nanotechnology was not there yesterday, but when nanotechnology comes, the coming generation will handle with it in a very, very amazing way, which will be much more wonderful for us, for the generation like us. It happens. So in the beginning, when the science was taking shape in Egypt through Ptolemy and others, it was at a different level. But that was gradually taken up by the Indian, Chinese, Babylonian and Greek sciences. This fact has to be accepted. And just before the Western science, it was the Arab and Islamic science which made the foundation for the Western science. This is a fact, and that is totally or almost totally neglected from the history books and from the scientific perception of the world. Now the science is becoming universal. Now there is an integration as the world is becoming global because of the impact of the technology, information technology, and the overall changes, social changes throughout the world. The science today cannot be called a Western science. Now the science is taking the form of a universal science. Though it is true that America is producing more scientists of original contribution and such, but it is gradually coming at the universal level where brighter minds are contributing, and the science is handled everywhere in the world in a much more uniform way. So if Islam was a real pathfinder for the Western science, if it is true, nothing can be accepted at face value. You have to, or we have to check it. If it is true, then what is the relation between science and Islam? When Europeans themselves call those periods AD around 1000, few hundred years before 1000 and few hundred years after 1000, starting from 800 AD to 1500 AD. The European historians themselves explain the West in the Dark Age. That was true. The social, economic, scientific, in all respects, the grade was very far below. At that time, a wonderful civilization based on the revelation of Islam had taken place in Asia, Africa, and some parts of Europe. The Renaissance and Enlightenment in the Europe was initiated and facilitated by the scholars, the interaction with the scholars in Cordoba in Spain, Istanbul in Turkey, which is what was called the Constantinople, and the Cairo in Egypt, and Iraq, Iran, and Asia Minor. Interaction through sending scholars, through the visit of the scholars, and after the fall of Constantinople, the exodus and large migration of the scholars from Constantinople to European parts, and which initiated an overall enlightenment in learning, which we call in the social science books as Renaissance and Enlightenment. And it was from there the scientific development of the West, which we call today the Western science takes shape. So the Cordoban University, the Iraq scholars, the Asia Minor, Iran, and all these people have contributed much. As it has been pointed out here, the respect for scholars and scholarship and their precedents and their traditions has been maintained by Islam by even keeping the Unani, the medicine Unani, even today, without changing only its linguistic form. The Unani medicine, actually the original Unani contribution in the present Unani medicine is very, very limited. It has been developed, researched, added, corrected, modified to the present level of Unani medicine. Still the name is maintained, Unani medicine, giving that respect and value for that tradition from where they had initiated. So what is the relation between Islam and science, which is very relevant today, and in these kinds of programs, none of your doubts will be cleared. And I mean speaking in English, unfortunately, my younger brothers and sisters may not be able to follow, and some of the respected audience also. I'm very sorry for that. But still, I would like to put some questions, and you will find its answers in due course by communicating with others, by reading your own books, and by arriving at your own conclusions. There is some conflict sometimes between religion and science. There is an imagined conflict, and that also originates from the West. Unfortunately, the West, the Christian leadership priesthood based in Italy and Rome at that time, believed that all the worldly explanations given by Aristotle were perfectly correct. Even Saint Aquinas and other great thinkers of the Christian world also depended much of their worldly thinking on the ideas and writings of Aristotle. So Aristotle believed that Earth is the physical center of the universe. It's another thing that you say that human beings, the Earth is the center of Earth. The Earth is a place where human beings are inhabiting, and human beings have a greater spiritual value in the universe. It's a special status in the creation of God. That way you can claim a spiritual centrality. That's a different thing altogether. But if say that Earth is the physical center of the solar system and a greater universe is something which reflected the limitation of Aristotelian thinking and Ptolemy's ideas. But the Christian church was very much adamant on that. That is why they had to put to death the Bruno, Giordano Bruno to death, that too by the fire, by the fire on the stake. He had to die. Giordano Bruno. So he was one of the tragic heroes of science in the West. He was a victim of the Aristotelian adamants of the Christian church at that time. It continued for 200 years. Thus, even Galileo had to suffer. But when the time of Newton, the things had changed. That's why he did not have to face much of the troubles. He could publish Principia, though it published after many years after his preparation. But there was no much Christian opposition for the publication of the Principia Mathematica, the book, the Principia Mathematica Philosophia Naturalis, mathematical principles of the natural philosophy. So the times change. But there is no such confusion in Islam. This is my important point to make in the last. In coming few minutes, I am winding up, and I am very thankful to the audience as well as the organizers for this kind of a very thought-generating session where the two important areas are being taken together and integrated: science and Islam, science and Islam. So I'm very much thankful to the organizers and the audience, and especially the coming generation, the budding coming our scientists and social scientists, our young students. So within 2 minutes, I'm winding up. Islam has always, there was no dichotomy between the religious and spiritual values and the guidance provided by Islam and the scientific pursuit. On the other hand, as it has been mentioned by our respected speakers, including the Vice Chancellor also reflected on that aspect, that Quran has encouraged thinking about the universe. Whichever limited way, the thinking about the universe 1400 years ago and the thinking about the universe and cosmology today in 21st century will be different. But that's, in a different way, that's a small difference. But there is, in another perspective, there is a vast difference. That's a small difference in the sense that the basic questions, the basic limitations, the basic matrix within which human beings can think is the same. There is so much change. But there is a vast, in a different perspective, there is a vast difference. The cosmology today and our understanding, though it is very limited, we say that it is old as 14 billion years. Maybe tomorrow we will be correcting it and we say that it is 2 billion years old or 200 or 2000 billion years old. Such kind of corrections and modifications are liable and possible. That way, even still, the knowledge about the universe, the galaxies, the inner world, the quantum world, the smaller atom, the inside human anatomy, the all kinds of world, there is a sea change in the last 300, 400 years. That way, from that perspective, there is a vast change. Whatever be the perspective, Islam always encourages, because there is no dichotomy. One is the acquired knowledge by human empirical methods, experimentation, observation, intuition, reasoning, mathematical reasoning. These are all the area of acquired knowledge. The other one is the revealed knowledge, directly revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the prophets, and the last revelation in the form of Al-Quran to the last prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there is no dichotomy. I need not repeat in these aspects. So from this kind of impetus, acquire knowledge from wherever it is, even as far as China. I think this is moderately acceptable, attributed to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I do not know about the strength and authenticity of this, but I think it is generally quoted, and similar quotations where acquisition of knowledge, of all forms of knowledge, is tremendously encouraged. Not only the knowledge of the Quran and Hadith and jurisprudence, fiqh, Sharia, but the knowledge of all related, because everything has been integrated. This is our knowledge, this is their knowledge, this is someone else's knowledge. This bifurcation and dichotomy is never there. The knowledge of the acquired knowledge of the world created by Allah, and the revealed knowledge which is directly revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there is much integration. That is the beauty of the concept of Islam, and the acquisition of knowledge in Islam, which incorporates science, which incorporates history, which incorporates revealed knowledge, Quran, Hadith, everything. This is the beauty of the concept and the philosophy of knowledge within Islam. I conclude with 1 minute. With this enthusiasm, it cannot be the science, knowledge and technology cannot produce overnight, not within a century. It takes centuries. It has taken 2000 years to come to this level of science and technology today. So the Muslims, in spite of the greater enthusiasm and encouragement, it took many decades, it took centuries, and the scientific society and the convenience, the technology in Tunisia, in Egypt, in Baghdad, in Tehran, it was very much there to see. Even the European cities of Cordoba, in Spain, Spanish cities of Cordoba, it was very much to see. It became the centers of knowledge. They became the leaders of knowledge, and the Arabic language became the knowledge of communication. It happens, there is nothing about it. And in the middle period, the Latin was the knowledge of the language of communication. That is why Newton himself had to write, sitting in England, he had to write his book in Latin, Principia Mathematica. Then now the English is the word language. There is nothing wrong about it. All languages are human languages. All are our languages. The thing is how morally, ethically we apply the scientific knowledge for the well-being of the human beings, and for not using, taking a promise not to use the scientific knowledge for the destruction like Nagasaki, Hiroshima, for biological weapons and all that. So my concluding words will be that we have to emphasize in two things, that the kind of encouragement Islam had produced, and one of our speakers had in detail, somewhat in detail dealt with the contributions. I am not going with it. Just I would like to say that we have to recognize this, and you have to think, you have to study from books and communications. I am speaking about our younger boys and girls, that they should convince themselves, they should internalize this idea, and there is no basic dichotomy between Islam, between science and religion. And the second thing I want to emphasize is that in India, you have to contribute to the problem-solving aspect of science. You have to pick up. because it will give you knowledge, it will give you wisdom, it will facilitate you in solving the problems of your family, of your society, of our state, and of our greater country and to the world. So to the issue, to the pursuit of problem solving also, you have to contribute by contributing by studying science in a very much more meaningful way. And once again, I am very much thankful, obliged to the audience as well as organizers for this wonderful occasion. And I also would like to congratulate the speakers for the illuminating ideas they had shared with us. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi.